I have a question for you. Do we create our own personalities or do others create them? Just think about this simple question. Since the childhood, we copying others' behavior. We watch how they live, how they talk, how they react, and without even realization, we start copying them. We mimic their emotions, intonations, habits, and values, and eventually it becomes a part of us. And for that reason, it makes sense to ask yourself another question. If we're being influenced by others, who has the most significant influence on us? But the majority of the time, the most logical answer could be our parents. But what exactly is a role model? A role model is a person who we try to emulate and follow, whose behavior we consciously or unconsciously copy. Of course, some of you may say, no, I definitely don't copy my parents. I don't consider them as someone who would like to emulate and copy. This is usually noticeable during the adolescence. At some point, we feel that the parents don't kind of person would like to be like. People at this age tended to be active, rebellious, develop their own personalities and opinions, and of course, asserting them. Therefore, some teenagers may dislike their parents because they may think that they're already adults, and their parents continue to cuddle them as a little child. This is actually what they should do. As I already mentioned, personalities and opinions start to be formed, and by that reason, teenagers might reject some values or characters, tales of parents. As I already mentioned, personalities and opinions are being formed, and by that reason, we observe others. And one most significant detail is that parents know that they're being watched. There one really interesting experiment called Bobo Doll made by Albert Bandura. So to make the story short, during that experiment, kids acted aggressively by watching how strangers and adults acted aggressively towards a toy, a simple toy. Kids weren't taught to behave like that directly. They learn it by observation. And if kids can observe and learn such a behavior from a strangers in a really short period of time, imagine how deeply they absorb the information from parents at home that they see every single day at home. But the problem lies elsewhere. Very often, our true role models aren't our parents. There are really real life cases when people grew up without human society, surrounded by creatures. After some time, started behaving like an animals who they saw by the majority of their time since the childhood. This phenomenon called Mowgli syndrome. Some of those children didn't know how to speak because no one around them used human speech. Some of them crawled on all fours because they saw how animals did it. They had the same feet habits. They acted the same to the danger. This happens simply because children, as I already said, observe those who spend the most amount of time nearby them. This suggests that a child begins to observe the behavior of others long before they start critically analyzing it. This is why role models are so important for us. When a child loses a parent, they begin to look for someone else to observe, to imitate, and become emotionally attached to. The problem isn't that new role model is a bad person. The problem is that they might not even know there's someone copying them. Unlike their parents, they don't have this sense of responsibility in front of that child. As already said, they may not even know that their behavior, actions, habits may shape gradually someone's personality. There was one writer named Viktor Frankl. He was born in a really beginning of 20th century. Before World War II, he was working as a psychotherapist. However, then in 1942, he and his wife were sent to the Theresienstadt concentration camp, and after 2 years, deported to the Auschwitz. After the war, he had a really significant realization. Even in the most challenging circumstances, people continue to be shaped by other people. In the concentration camp, he witnessed both cruelty and compassion. Some prisoners were completely broke and lost their hope by spending a lot of time surrounded by violence. However, other prisoners found strength in those who shared their food, supporting them, and just simply rejected to give up. Franklin himself a person who found strength in that experience. His experience showed us that person does not exist in a vacuum. He's still turning to others, seeking for guidelines and meaning. And then the thought arises: don't always choose who we look at, but we may choose who we continue to follow. Because sooner or later, we become like those who we admired and followed the most. Even if it seems small, oh, Allah, she's confident. Allah, she smile. It starts with such a small things, however, then it becomes a part of our personalities. And then the next time when you catch yourself on a thought, I like that person, you should ask yourself that small, simple question: do I really want to be like them? And if it's answering no, maybe it's time to choose different examples, not only for who makes you feel inspired and accepted, but also for who make you feel stronger, kinder, and more responsible. Because admiration is powerful, and after we become like those who we admired the most. And the most terrifying thing in that transformation, it's not all, it's that it happens quietly. It not happens all at once. It happens in the words we begin to repeat. It happens in the reactions we stop questioning, in the habits that we thought belonged to someone else. And maybe one day you'll hear your own voice, you'll look at your reflection, you'll check your intonation, and you'll realize that it was never entirely yours. Thank you.